Well, hello everyone and welcome back to Marian's World, and I've got a really lovely video for you today because not only are you seeing my red Botanicals dress for the very first time, I've been doing some beautiful stitching on it, and I've been doing Mountmellick Embroidery. Now, I haven't been doing it traditional because it's supposed to be on a white ground and it's supposed to be in a hoop, and mine is none of that, but it's looking really pretty and I'll show you it at the end. And as well as that, and getting a first glimpse of my actual Botanicals dress that I'm going to add all my things to, I have another giveaway for you, and I haven't got long to run it, only from today until next Sunday. And it's actually tickets for the Sewing for Pleasure show at the Birmingham NEC, which is in March, and I have a pair of tickets to give away. I'll give you all the details at the end after the embroidery, but it's a really nice giveaway. I've been there now, must be about 4 years in a row, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I hope you're going to enjoy seeing the beautiful whitework embroidery coming onto my red linen dress. See you at the end. These are the two books that I'm using as my reference. Now, I've had both of these for a long time. They're both about 20 years old. This is the A to Z of Whitework, book 1, Surface Embroidery, and it has other variations of whitework other than Mountmellick. So it's a really nice book. It's a sort of an introduction. But I also have this one here, which is Mountmellick Embroidery, inspired by nature, and I think I've had this one maybe about 12 or 15 years. They were both second hand when I bought them, and I have done a little bit before, but when I did it maybe about, must be maybe 30 years ago, I was doing it with stranded cotton on some white sheet. And although it was nice, I didn't really sort of get away with it. I think I was just wanting to do colourful things at the time. Anyway, it came into my head to put some Mountmellick embroidery onto the neckline of my dress. And so I am taking some of the designs that are in here. There's a whole leaf sampler here, and there are leaves on various of the projects. So I'm going to do maybe a combination of what I can see and just doing my own thing. But the whole point is that it is very textured and I'm not doing it properly. I'll just say that straight away, because Mountmellick should be done on white fabric and it should be stretched tight in a hoop. But I'm doing it on a red dress and I'm not stretching it in a hoop because I don't want to mark my linen. And obviously I've already made the dress, so it would be more difficult. But even so, I'm getting good results, and I'm still doing the actual embroidery with the right threads in the same way. So this was my little design that I thought I'd try and do, and I've cut out a little pattern for a leaf just so I could keep them all around about the same size, and I've done half of it so far. This is the half I've done, and I'm about to set up to do the other half. I really like the way the dog roses come here because it's covered. I've done it over the top of the lovely pleat that's on the front of this dress. And I'm going to mark it just with my bit of soap, which I've actually shaved down now, so it's got a nice little point. And it just means I can nicely get a line on. I don't need any disappearing pens. This sort of wears off as you're stitching. And I'm just using my little template as a guide. I'm not actually drawing around it, but I'm using it as a guide to placement, so I can sort of just do that, get the sort of size. Do that again. I'll just check I've got the right size, a bit thicker there, and one here. I'll get it round about. Check the size, seems about right to me. I'm just going to use a fine thread and run a tacking stitch on my curvy line, and so I'm going to go through from underneath the facing. You can see obviously I used the red because I ran out of the mulberry linen. So I'm just going to run up and I'm going to tack all of this in. Now originally, when I was doing it a long time ago, I was just using white stranded cotton because that's what I had. But because this is for my dress that I'm doing all year, I thought I'd try and get the correct thread. And so that's what I've got. So this is Mountmellick thread. It goes from fine at number 1, that's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and they're getting thicker the higher the number is. So if I take a piece off here and I take a piece off here to show you the difference between the number 1 thread and the number 4 thread, and you can see that it's gone from very fine to quite thick, because you can't divide these threads down. And a feature of it in particular is it's very matte. There's no shine to it like stranded cotton. So the real Mountmellick embroidery is thick fabric done with this very matte thread and then highly textured. There's no open work or anything like that. So I've got the proper threads and I'm working with the proper threads, and they are lovely, very nice. You can buy them, you don't have to buy them on a cone like that, you can buy them with shorter amounts, but I thought it was worth it for me because I'm probably going to do more of this anyway. So that's the threads I'm using. I'm also using a very sharp needle that's got a decent eye because I need it to be able to get the thicker threads in, and so I'm using this long needle. That's what I'm using. And so for my first leaf I'm going to use the thread number 3. I'm going to start off with a stitch I have done on the channel before. In fact, a lot of the stitches in this type of embroidery are stitches you will have heard of, you will probably have done. They're just done in a slightly different way. Sometimes they're padded, and the matte thread definitely makes a difference. So I'm going to start this leaf and I'm going to outline it in Portuguese stem stitch. And I'm going to start by coming up at the point. So I'm just going to hold it in my hand. I'm going underneath the facing, and that is a reason why I am not putting my work in a hoop. So all of you who are seasoned Mountmellick embroidery stitchers, I hope you're not shouting at the camera because I'm not doing it on white and I'm not in a hoop, but I am still doing the embroidery and I'm hoping it's going to look beautiful. I'm going to pull you in so I can do this Portuguese stem stitch. So I've come out at the tip. I'm going to make my first stem stitch. So my thread's coming up on the right hand side, and making a lefty, I'm wrapping from the left to the right. I'm going to wrap that stitch once and twice. And I'm just going to make sure those wraps are lying nice and they're not twisted at all. And I'm going to come down and do another stitch. So I'm going to make a stitch of around maybe 1/8 of an inch. So that's just another nice stem stitch. And this time I'm going to make the wrap through that stitch that I've just made and through the bottom of the previous stitch. So there's my first wrap, there's my second wrap. Lie them nicely, no twisting. Come down to do the next stem stitch. And in this way we get a really lovely knotted stitch. Wrap and wrap. And the shorter the stitches you make, the more knotted it's going to be. You want to try and get your stitches as evenly as you can. And as I come round my outline, I'm just going to make sure that my knots are lying on the outline of the leaf. If I just do a few more and show you how it looks. Okay, so I hope you can see how beautifully we've got this lovely little, almost a diagonal wrap. and then the lovely stem stitch coming down around, making a lovely edge to the leaf. So I'm going to continue all the way around there and finish back up at the point. As you can see, my thread has to come out on the opposite side of the stem stitch because I'm a left-hander working from left to right with my wraps. If you're right-handed, you need to do this the opposite way around, and you possibly would start anti-clockwise rather than clockwise like I'm doing. And my thumb's just helping that wrap sit where I would like it to be. I've finished my lovely Portuguese stem stitch outline. It's really looking lovely, and it just occurred to me that I should say something about the threads. If you don't want to buy the proper thread, or you don't have it and you still want to do this lovely embroidery, I thought I'd give you some equivalents. So this is the finest thread. This is Mountmellick 1, and I would say that is equivalent to 1 or 2 strands of your stranded cotton. 2 is probably a little bit thicker and 1's maybe a bit finer, so 1 or 2 strands is going to be fine. 2 is next thickness up, and I would say you're going to go to 2 or 3. So it just depends what you're doing. There's 2 strands with that one, and if I put 3 together you'll see the difference. So that's Mountmellick 2, I would say 2 or 3. This is Mountmellick 3, which I've just used for the Portuguese stem stitch. So there we go. I'm going to say that's 4 strands. And for the thickest one, which is Mountmellick 4, I'd say just use all 6 strands of stranded cotton. And there we are. There's the stranded here and the Mountmellick thread to the left. That's how you can go on if you haven't got access to, or you don't want to buy the actual thread, but you would like to do some of this beautiful textural stitching. So next on my leaf, I'm going to do a leaf vein in here, and I'm going to do a stitch that I've never actually done before, and I'm going to do Mountmellick stitch. And yes, it's an embroidery with its own dedicated named stitch. I've never done it. I've got my needle threaded with Mountmellick 3, and I'm actually going to use the little tutorial within this book. So here it is here, Mountmellick stitch. So first of all I will just use my soap, and I'll just give myself a line down the middle. In fact, I'm going to give 2 lines because I want 2 layers of this Mountmellick stitch. Here goes. So I'm going to come up at the top, as I am watching a right-handed tutorial. So I'm going to go in this way. I've done a little diagonal stitch. Going to come through that stitch like that. So the next part is to go back up to where your thread originally came out and take a stitch downwards, and then the thread is looping underneath, and I'll pull that one through, and it's going to make a little hook going upwards like that. And then the next thing is to come down to the next piece. So okay, so now I'm ready to take my next stitch. So back in and down, and then back up into the loop and down and loop underneath. Okay, I think I've got it. I'm going to aim it for over here. I'll try and do it right up at the camera. So I'm going diagonally down. I'll try and make all of the stitches the same size. So I'm going to come down here, take a little stitch. I'm only taking about 1/8 of an inch. Pull that down. Pass my needle through that stitch. Make a little knot. Come back up to the previous loop and take a stitch down the same size, and the needle comes over the thread. Pull through. Oh, well, that's very nice. You can see my thread's twisting up. You have to keep untwisting your thread. That sort of applies for floss as well as this. So I made my knot, back up to the top, take a stitch down and over the working thread. Actually, it's not very difficult. Well, that's very nice. I like it a lot. So now I'm going to try and do another one on the other side. It's actually taken me a little minute to get into the habit of doing it the opposite way around, which may be more useful for a right-hander to see, so that's why I'm coming on to show you it. And I'm doing it really close together with the other one so that the whole thing looks like it's down the middle, and it's actually working out quite well. So to do it the opposite way around, so you can see I've got my little pieces going out either side. So I have to turn round because I'm left-handed, so I'm turning round a bit. I'm going to take my little stitch in on a level with the one that I had previously, and I'm going to take my little 1/8 of an inch inwards, making sure the thread's on top. So there I've got my little diagonal, and now I need to go through that. This is where I'm a bit awkward, so I'm putting my hand right the way round. So I'm now through that stitch to make an overhand knot, and then back up to my previous stitch, so into the loop. I'll just show you where I'm going there, into the loop and down to match that, and then the thread's going round like a blanket stitch. And then when I pull through, just supporting my work there, I've got a mirror image stitch on that side. I'll do that once more and then I'll finish this piece off. I'm going down on a level with that one, taking my little 1/8 of an inch stitch inwards. I'm passing my needle through that stitch from top to bottom. To make a little overhand knot, going back up to the loop and putting my needle in through the loop and coming back out at the same height as I have done already, and making sure my needle's coming over the working thread and pulling through. And we get this sort of a little loop with a knot and an outwards part. It's really lovely. It's not often I learn a new stitch that I haven't done, but here we go. It feels really nice to be doing something different. Okay, and I'm just going to anchor that down to finish it off, and I'm just weaving my thread ends through. I have occasionally started with a knot, but mainly I'm weaving my ends through to finish off. And there it is. So that is a Mountmellick stitch done, well, my left ways and right ways. Don't think I've quite got them very even, but for a first time effort, I'm very pleased. For my second leaf, I'm going to do whipped chain stitch, and you might be able to see I've just moved the leaf down a little. I felt it was a little bit too high. I'm going to start at the tip of the leaf from underneath my facing. I've got the thickest thread, so that's Mountmellick 4, I would say equivalent to your 6 strands of stranded cotton, and I'm going to do quite small chain stitches with this thick thread. I don't want them to be too huge. I'm just coming about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to lay in a really nice thick chain that I'll then whip round. So into the loop, skipping ahead and over my working thread to make a proper, just a normal chain stitch. I forgot to say when I was doing the other one that I do have a tutorial already on my channel in the stitch tutorials for the Portuguese stem stitch, because I actually did it as part of the stitch journal last year, in with the first bit of crewel work that I showed. And so Portuguese stem stitch is already on a stitch tutorial. So I'm going to get right round here with my chain stitch. And I'm just going to take my needle and I'm going to whip every stitch coming back round. And that's why I've tried to make the stitches small, because I don't want this to look sort of heavyweight. There it is, just going round, not passing my needle through the fabric at all. Just make a lovely textural edging. I thought while I was doing this, and I didn't have to tell you really what I was doing because it's a bit obvious that I'm just whipping a stitch, I thought I'd just tell you that Mountmellick's very unusual in that it can be traced back to just one lady. There was a lady called Joanna Carter. She lived in the mid-1800s. And she is credited with inventing Mountmellick embroidery. She was already doing white work, and she was doing this particular style. She was showing other people how to do it, and from that a whole style of embroidery developed, which I think is pretty cool. And there are quite a few historical pieces of work that are around. I think there's a museum in Ireland. And what was a bit astonishing to me though was when obviously I had the two books that I had already, and when I knew I was going to put the bit of embroidery on my dress, I was doing a bit more research. I thought, I wonder whether there's any more up-to-date books, because these ones I've got are a bit old. And then I realised that both of the books I have are actually printed in Australia. They're from Australia, not from Ireland. And they're beautiful books and they're absolutely gorgeous. However, it surprised me that there are not any books from Ireland when it's an Irish form of crochet. And as much as I looked, I just couldn't find any. So if anybody is watching this and thinking, Marion, you're butchering that style of embroidery, or you're not supposed to be doing it on there, or what have you, it doesn't matter. If you know of any books, more books that I could get a hold of, or anything to do with Ireland, let me know, because I would definitely be interested in finding out. Be quite nice to go to Ireland and learn from somebody who was already doing some good stuff, but I don't know of anybody so far. Anyway, I'm just whipping through there and finishing off, and that's my lovely piece of whipped chain stitch, which has made a nice raised up edge. And I'm going to fill this in with double feather, I think, with my finer thread. I'll just do a normal double feather coming downwards. So I'm going to take a little stitch down and over my working thread, and I'll take another one the same way, and then I'm going to go back the other way, trying to keep my stitches even as I'm working down the leaf. There's my second leaf. I think that's come out very pretty. I like that feather stitch down the middle. For my third leaf, and I've given myself a central line to keep going with, and I'm going to aim to get my stitches going down that central line. But I'm going to do feather stitch again, so the same stitch as this, but instead of alternating, I'm going to do long armed feather stitch, which means that I'm going to go out to the edge and into the rib of the leaf, over my working thread, pull through. I'm going to alternate each side, but I'm going to keep my stitches going right out, and the little piece that I'm coming through is not going to go down very much, so it's going to be very tightly packed together. even though I'm alternating the sides and I'm not spacing them out, they're going to make a different look entirely. So out to the edge, down onto the middle rib, only just below where I've just been. In fact, I think I need them even tighter together than this. I'm doing this in Mountmellick 3, so it's maybe 3 or 4 strands of floss. I'm coming out straight under the previous stitch. I'm not leaving any space at all. Because these are long stitches, I'm going to really make sure that my fabric's not getting stretched or not getting tightened up. Come back in straight underneath my previous stitch on the leaf vein, pull through. And getting those middle stitches as close together as I can. This would definitely be helped by being in a hoop when it's long stitches like this. I'm just going to be super careful. I'm finishing this leaf border with some absolutely beautiful chunky French knots. So I've got the thickest thread in my needle, which is sort of equivalent to all 6 strands, and I'm doing a 2 wrap French knot, so twice round my needle, back into the fabric. I'm lying these so they're touching, so they're going to just make a lovely edging all the way around, making sure the knots at the fabric while I pull through. And then hopping down for the next one, I'm doing them right on the edge of what I've already done. So up, twice round my needle, back down, knot to the fabric, support it while you pull through. And I'm going to end up with just a lovely knotted raised edge. I'm going to do that right the way around to the bottom. I'm back with the last leaf, and I'm going to do a few layers round for this one. So the first go round, I'm going to do coral knot stitch. So obviously I'm left-handed, I have to transpose it. So I'm going to lay my thread in a loop. I'm going to go down inside the loop and pick up a little diagonal stitch over my line and come out, and it's going to make a little knot like that. Now then, on coral knot stitch, I could now come down here and I could take a really long stitch and I'll end up with a series of little knots. But because this is Mountmellick, I'm going to do these really tight up together. So there's my loop going round, little diagonal stitch, take my knot. I'm going to go around the whole of the outline doing exactly this same thing. Actually, I could have done them even tighter than this, I think. Wherever the threads come out, I'm going to go a little diagonal knot. I'm picking up 2 threads of my linen, the threads going underneath the needle both times, so that the thread's looping totally underneath. Pull through, support my fabric as it goes through, tighten up my knot. I'm going to get all the way around. I kept the same thread in my needle, and now I'm going round another line on the inside of the coral knot, and I'm just doing normal stem stitch, just taking a little stitch back to the previous stitch, making sure that whichever side I'm keeping my thread on, I am consistent with that. It doesn't matter which way you keep your thread, just be consistent, and then you'll have stem stitch. So I'm on the same thread, the same number 3 thread. I'm back to the top, and because I'm at the top, I'm going to go down the middle here with chain stitch. But because I'm actually at the top, I'm going to do the backwards chain. So I'm going to just take a little stitch go around my needle and come down, and that'll be my first one. And after that I just need to hop down, pass my needle through the legs of this chain stitch, back down to there to match up, and then hop back however far I want it to be. So, and then I can get it what looks like a chain stitch, but I've done it the other way around. So through the legs of the previous stitch, back to meet where the thread comes out, and take a hop backwards by the length of what you want your stitch to be, and hop back. And now I'm going to fill in each side with, let me think. I could do a bit of satin stitch. I could do, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do bullion knots. I'm going to take a small stitch out to the side, come back up, pull my needle almost all the way through. I'm going to do some wraps, of which I'm not counting them. I'm just going to do them until I think I'm filling in the space. So that one has 7 wraps on there. And if I hold them while I pull my needle through, as they come through, I can pull them up, ease the knot over, and just ease it down to fill the space. Then tighten the knot until your space is filled and anchor it down. As I'll do a straight stitch in between, and then go down for another knot. I'll take the stitch, wrap my thread, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it's a bit bigger, 8, 9, looks about right. Support my thread and my fabric as I pull through, and as the knot gets tightened, you go from pulling that way to pulling in the direction that you want your knot to lie, and just keep supporting your knot, supporting your fabric until it's nicely tightened up, and then you anchor it down. Put a straight stitch in and then 1 more knot, so that'll be nice, 3 knots going up. Right, they look rather super duper. So do it down the other side. I try and match them up. The only thing left to do now is to put my lovely trailing stem in. Now it's called cording stitch, but actually all it is a slanting blanket stitch to get the same number thread, which I think I used 3. And cording stitch really is just blanket stitch on a slant and very close together. So I am just going to start here and take the tiniest stitch, just 2 or 3 mils, come up in my loop to do a normal blanket stitch, always supporting my fabric as I pull the thread through, and then I'm going to lie the next one straight in beside it, and I'm going to try really just to be picking up the line to keep the cord nice and tight together, and just keep my stitches as evenly as I can as I go up and as close together as I can. Well, here's today's bit of Mountmellick embroidery finished. I have gone and added some little straight stitches in here, just with the very finest thread, and I think it just made enough of a difference. But I really like them, and particularly I think this one might be my favourite. I'm going to put it on and you'll see me wearing it in the outro. Well, I've got it on and you can see how lovely that neckline is lying. I really like the sleeves, and I can't get far enough back to give you a full length one, but suffice it to say it fits lovely. I'm going to show you this close up. I need another little, I've just noticed I've only done one little tiny blossom. Anyway, on to the information. So I've got some things to tell you. First of all, I'll tell you about the dress. So this is the dress that I'm going to put all of the botanical type embroidery on. The reason you haven't seen it before is because I just finished it. And it's all hand stitched. So this is linen that I've had a couple of years in my stash. I got it originally at Sewing for Pleasure, and it was to make a pair of dungarees. And the linen, it's like a mulberry red linen, has just stayed in my stash ever since. And when I was thinking about what I was going to do for a dress, usually I just do my own pattern, and it would have had a bodice and a gathered skirt. However, I did have this pattern, and this pattern is called the Amelia dress by Sew Me Something. And I actually got this at, well, it would either be Sewing for Pleasure or it would be Harrogate Knitting and Stitching Show. I can't quite remember which one. But all of a sudden I thought, do you know, it's a bit of a different style for me. I don't normally have ones without a waist, but I thought I had enough material. I only just had enough material. The pockets are actually patched from about 4 or 5 pieces together, and before I could cut the pocket out. And the facing on the inside of here, I had to use a different linen, and this linen is off a red dress that I made for myself about 3 years ago. So it's got the different linen for the facing, but that doesn't matter. I managed to get everything else out, and I decided I would hand stitch the whole thing, which I have done. So it had French seams on the inside, the shoulders are all French seamed, everything is just hand stitched, and it's been a pleasure to do because I could just sit in my chair on an evening and watch the TV or put some music on and just hand stitch away, and it's been lovely. So it's all finished with the exception of the hem. Now, the reason I haven't hemmed it yet is because I have an idea of something I want to do specifically with the hem, and so until I do that, the hem is going to stay unfinished. But other than that, everything is finished, and so this is the first piece of embroidery going into the cloth itself, as opposed to the bird and rose cantha style, which is going to be appliqued on. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing this Mountmellick embroidery. I know it's not exactly the traditional way. On to the giveaway. So I've been going to Sewing for Pleasure at Birmingham for, well, this will be the 4th year I'll have gone, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's all the fabrics, threads, the manufacturers of the big machines goes. Oh, I just see, I can't list them all. There's just so many. You'd have to go and look at their website and see all the different things that they have there. There's usually exhibitions. There'll be there's the fashion exhibition, and there's usually stitching exhibitions and quilts there on show. There's also the Create and Craft is on at the same weekend, and if you go to Sewing for Pleasure, you have access to that as well. So the dates of it are actually Thursday the 13th of March, I'm just checking my diary here, Thursday the 13th of March until Sunday the 16th of March. And I nearly always go on the first day. This year, Sewing for Pleasure have given me tickets for the full weekend, so I can't stay the full weekend because it means me staying away for one thing. But so I'm actually going to be there on the Thursday and the Friday, and I'll be filming for you. So I will try and do some filming on the Thursday and get some little interviews like I have done in the past. And on the Friday, I'm not going to take my camera, I'm just going to go and have a nice time looking around at everything myself. So that's what I'm doing. But Sewing for Pleasure have given me a pair of tickets to give away. So the pair of tickets is valid for the full weekend. So obviously just enter this draw if you are able to go to Sewing for Pleasure at the Birmingham NEC over the weekend of Thursday the 13th of March to Sunday the 16th of March. The tickets are valid for all of those days, as many or as few as you want. If you can only go one day, you just use it one day. If you're able to go more than one and you want to go 2 or 3 days, the tickets will be valid for that. Now I can only run this till next Sunday, because Sewing for Pleasure I need to give the name of the winner to Sewing for Pleasure, and they will send the ticket to you when I give them the winner's details. So this is going to be from today, you can enter, and I will make the draw for next Sunday's video. That just gives me time for the winner to contact me, for me to get the details, for me to send them to Sewing for Pleasure, and just in case a winner doesn't come forward, I need to be able to have time to draw it again. So to enter the draw, if you're able to go and any of those 4 days, all you need to do is in the comment section of this video put Sewing for Pleasure in with your comment, and that just means that I can filter that out to only the people who want to go and are able to go. Remember, you have to be able to get there. I'll put all of this information in the description box below this video. There's going to be so many things to see there. Another really special thing is that the red dress, you might have heard of the red dress that's been going around, it's gone all around the world. It's been stitched on by so many women. For me, it'll be the second time I'll have seen it. Just go online and have a look and see what it is. I'll put a picture up here now, if I can, to show you what it's all about, and I hope that they'll allow me to film some of it while I'm there as well. There's just everything. It's just an amazing show, and it's very spacious, and so even though there ends up being a lot of people there, it never particularly feels cramped to me because there's a lot of space to move around. Thanks for watching. Good luck for entering the draw, and if you end up being the winner, you might see me there if you're there on the Thursday or Friday. You'll have to watch out for me and I'll watch out for you. And I hope you subscribe if you haven't, and that you give me the like button. That's always good. YouTube likes comments. YouTube likes the like button being pressed. And thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Oh no, I'll see you on Wednesday when the draw of the 50,000 subscriber draw is happening. Oh, it's getting I can't keep up. There's too much going on. Anyway, Wednesday I will announce the winner of the 50,000 subscriber draw. I'll see you then. I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye everyone. Good luck.